Kevin, I mean, these are really intense allegations. What is the defense?
Well, obviously, the one thing I want to caution everybody against is rushing to judgment. Lighting the torches and mounting the horses and getting the posse to go out is not the proper thing to do. I believe that this isn't just going to be a he said, she said scenario. I believe that there's going to be documentary evidence to show that there's no way that this boy was kept for 10 days straight, 9 hours a day before this incident occurred. I also believe that the evidence, the credible evidence, will show that he was made to kneel as punishment, but it was up to him as to when he got up.
And how long? But he was down there long enough to have injuries to his knees, allegedly.
Right, but we don't know what the extent of that is, but allegedly there was some blistering on the knees, and if you took these allegations as the gospel, which are based on the rendition of the facts of this one sole 13-year-old who has, my understanding, has had a history of mental illness and diagnosed forensic psychology evaluations that show a pattern and a history of, and I'm not trying to make him the defendant. He's a child and he's got a mental illness, and I'm sensitive to that. But my understanding is he does have a history that would call his credibility into question, and that he would manipulate situations for leverage and his own well-being. Just 4 years ago, my partner, Melody Lopez, represented a lady, a young girl, that was charged with kidnapping, a punishable by life offense in the teen beating case. Her family got hate mail, death threats for months. Ultimately, those charges were dropped. I'm just caution everyone. You don't know the whole story until you've heard both sides of the story.
All right.
And
well,
let
me go to Judge Karen. Let me go to Judge Karen, who's gathering the villagers and lighting the torches. Karen, how you heard, and you're the legal expert here. You heard what Mr. Humphrey said. Why don't you react?
I used to be a criminal defense attorney, so I would have been saying all the things that this lawyer is saying. You know, that's a great job. But this isn't just he said, she said. We got grandma next door that says, you know what, he was putting a diaper on that boy and treating that boy bad. We got the auntie down the street that said that he's been torturing this boy for a long time. We have a 9-year-old sister that said, I witnessed this thing going on for days and days and days. And we know that family services goes in a lot of times and investigates, and they walk away and say, we didn't see any signs of abuse. They have snatched these 2 children out of the home. I wish you all the best in defending your client. You're doing a good job. That's what defense attorneys are supposed to do. But let's call a spade here. There's a lot more going on here.
Karen, I love you. The couple is also charged with one count of, as you're mentioning, aggravated child abuse against their 9-year-old granddaughter. And that affidavit reads, quote, 9-year-old girl stated she had to kneel for 2 days and could only eat in the morning. She said she had marks on her knees, but the marks had healed. Somebody saw her kneeling for several days and had witnessed Nancy and Albert both slap her in the face on separate occasions. And by the way, we didn't have a chance yet to address these so-called protein shakes that he drank. I'm hearing they were with chicken, which, from a physician standpoint, chicken that's undercooked is very dangerous for anybody, let alone kids. So, Kevin, what about those charges? Are these all the children lying? Are the neighbors lying?
Well, what's the major lack of evidence we have at this point is absolutely no forensic medical evidence. One would think if a 13-year-old were subjected to kneeling 9 hours straight, and I mind you, I believe that those allegations are going to be undermined not just by the testimony of the defendants in this case, my clients, but by actual documentary evidence that may show that they were actually traveling and other places during that period of time with the alleged victim. I just caution everyone, and a spade, everyone knows that there's unique social dynamics in each and every family. And I don't know if there's a history of bad blood between those neighbors or not.
All right, fair enough. Kevin, I'm gonna interrupt you right there. Lisa Boeski, is it ever just bad blood? Or you and I have dealt with this stuff an awful lot. When these kinds of things get bandied about, usually there's something going on.
Well, that's exactly right. And maybe it wasn't 9 hours, and maybe it wasn't 10 days, but just the fact there were blisters and bleeding on his knees. He was walking hunched over. Then, as we heard before, the grandmother was calling the police.
But let me talk to you about this, and this is my bigger concern. And I really do. I mean, I am very concerned. I know Karen is not going to give these grandparents a break for this. I am concerned the system failed the parents. I'm concerned that this kid did have severe psychiatric problems that were left unattended, and you know that could be a tough thing to deal with for a family, right?
But that's absolutely
Doesn't
no
make it
excuse.
okay. Doesn't make it
No
okay.
excuse.
I'm just saying that you know, what was the psychiatric condition this kid had? I heard he lit furniture on fire and whatnot. I mean, I heard that kind of stuff.
Well, the thing is that given the way we don't know where bio mom is, we don't know where bio dad is, bio grandmother's next door, but she has no kind of impact here. So we know that
dad, is that some sort of robot dad?
Sorry, biological mom, biological dad, is that there may be mental illness in this family.
Yes.
Is that this boy may have inherited something, and then given what his home life is like, that's likely impacting it as well.
Or causing it.
Or causing it, but it's likely an interaction of inheritance and environment.
Sure.
But the key is, if the grandparents are struggling with him, then they need to get help. There's community mental health resources.
But that's what I'm saying. Did that maybe fail them?
We don't know. But even if it did, that is no reason
for the behavior. If that alleged behavior actually occurred.
And I would say it sounds like something is going on here. It may not have been as extreme, but this isn't the only story. We just heard a couple of weeks ago about the grandparent who ran, as punishment, ran her young girl around the living room, and she died. Just a few months ago, there was another girl who was locked in a chest, and she died. This is not the only story. I hear these stories every day, much worse than this, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, Kevin, let me ask you, do we know who the parents are themselves? And have they come forward? Are they talking? And do they have a history of mental illness themselves?
No, and I believe that there were some issues in those households, and that's why ultimately they were placed in Albert and Nancy's residence, and Albert did a single-parent adoption.
So
no,
these
just
children
again,
were already in the system. It sounds like these children were already in the system. These are dependent.
Yes.
Then where was Child Protective Services?
I can't speak
right.
on a lot of the evidence regarding the children and regarding the history of the children, but I think that if everybody on this panel were privy to that information, it may sway their opinions at this time.
All right. Well, all right, Karen, before you light the torches, let's give Kevin a few more minutes, okay? We'll keep the villagers at bay. I'm just saying.